friends, Mimi G here with another sew along as part of my Mimi G for Simplicity patterns. Today we're going to be working on my swimsuit pattern 1116. I'm so excited about this one, so let's get started. If you're new to sewing or you just need a little refresher, I suggest you watch the Sewing Basics video linked in the description box below to help you get started. I go over all of the basic tools you're going to need, how to pick the right size, how to cut your pattern, your fabric, how to understand grain lines and all of the markings on those printed patterns. Then after you watch that, you can come back to watch this video. Aside from all of the basic tools in the basics video, there are a couple more things you're going to need for this swimsuit. Now you're going to need to get stretch needles. Now there's a difference between jersey ballpoint needles and stretch needles. I want you to get stretch needles, and on the back of it, it will say for swimwear or very stretchy fabrics. You want to make sure that you get the correct needle because it will make all the difference in your sewing. You're also going to need a 1/4 inch wide knit elastic. Now I prefer to get the 1/4 inch cotton swimwear elastic because it's softer and feels better inside of your swimsuit. You're of course going to need my pattern 1116, and for fabric you're going to be using a swimwear or spandex fabric. We're going to be sewing view C in this video, so here are the pattern pieces you're going to need to cut out. You should have cut out 2 pieces of number 3, which is the lining of your swimwear. Now you can cut your lining out of mesh or swimwear lining, which is readily available. I just happened to cut mine out of the same swimsuit fabric because I had a whole lot of extra yardage. You also need to cut out 2 of pattern piece number 9, which is the back of our swimsuit. You're going to need to cut out pattern piece number 8 on the fold, which is the front flounce. You're also going to be cutting out pattern piece number 7 on the fold, which is the front of our swimsuit. And pattern piece number 12, which is the front lining piece. You're going to cut out your tie belt and of course your straps. Now you're going to see that you have some extra pattern pieces here, number 5, number 10, and number 6. These are not cut out of fabric. Instead, these are your elastic guides. So this is the size of elastic you're going to be cutting out for your straps and your side and for your legs. As I suggest in the basics video, it's a good idea to keep your pattern pieces pinned to your fabric pieces so that as we're sewing, when I say we're working on piece number 3, you can easily find piece number 3. Now that we have everything cut out, we can start sewing. Okay, we're going to start with pattern piece number 8, which is our flounce. And we're going to open it up and working on the wrong side, looking up at you. I want you to turn under 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, or hem allowance, I'm sorry. And we're going to stitch close to the edge, about 1/8 of an inch away from that folded edge. Make sure you're using a zigzag stitch, a very narrow zigzag stitch. We're going to use a zigzag stitch to sew the entire swimsuit together. Now go ahead and cut off the excess hem allowance and then give this a light press with a cool iron, and then we'll continue. Okay, now grab your front pattern piece, which is number 7, and you're going to open it up so that the right side of your fabric is facing you. And we're going to pin our flounce onto our swimsuit front. So with the wrong side of the flounce against the right side of the swimsuit, go ahead and pin, and then align that notch that's on the arm's eye. and pin on the side. And then do the same thing on the other side. And then pin once at the neck. And now we're going to baste this down. So using a long stitch and starting at the side, we're just going to sew this down. Now that we have our flounce stitched down, we're going to go ahead and grab pattern piece number 9, which is the back of your swimsuit. And we're going to face the fabrics right sides together. So you're looking at the wrong side of your fabric. And then we're going to pin and sew the center back. The center back should have 3 notches. And we're using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now go ahead and open this up. You can give it a good press if you'd like. And then we're going to place them right sides facing. And we're going to sew the side seams. So match your notches along the sides. And this time we're going to be using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to pin and sew the other side seam the same way. Okay, now that we have our side seams done, we're going to open our side seams and we're going to create our casings for our elastic. So where you have that dot or a notch, whichever one you marked, I did little slits, we're going to create stitching lines. So I want you to open that seam and sewing 3/8 of an inch from that seam line, we're going to do a row of stitching. Back stitch, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Starting at the bottom, and you're going to sew until you get to that notch or dot. And then I want you to cut 4 pieces of elastic using your guide, piece number 10. And what we're going to do is you're going to insert your elastic, so use a safety pin. hand, you're going to sift your elastic in. Once the elastic tail end is inside, you're going to stitch it down. And then continue. And once you reach the top, remove your safety pin and stitch it down. You're going to do the same thing to the other side, and then you're going to do the same exact thing with your seam allowance and your elastic to the other side seams. Alrighty, once we're done doing the elastic casings on both of our side seams, we're going to set this aside and we're going to sew our straps. So I want you to fold them in half, lengthwise, right sides facing, and we're going to stitch using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to turn this right side out. So grab your safety pin and just put it right inside. Grab your 2 pieces of elastic that you should have cut using your elastic guide. Pull it all the way through, and then grab one of your elastics for your straps. And that's pattern piece number 11, actually, not 5. And you're going to put your elastic inside of your casing. Okay, almost there. Pull your fabric. You're going to secure one end, so remove your safety pin and stitch through all layers. And then you're going to pull. You're going to do the same thing to the other strap. Okay, now with the swimsuit right side out, we're going to put our straps on. So go ahead and center your strap on the front and then pin it in place. And we're going to stitch it down. And do the same thing to the other strap. crisscross it in the back, so turn it so that the back is facing you, and take your left strap and pin it to the right back where that notch is, and then just stitch it down. And you're going to do the same thing, so take the right one and stitch it down. Once you have that done, you're going to grab your lining pieces and you're going to sew your lining together the same way we did the front. So you're going to take your back and you're going to place it right sides facing. You're going to pin at your notches and sew using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way down. Then you're going to open this up and place it right sides facing with the front, and sew your side seams. The only difference here is you'll be using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and there is no gathering or casings or elastic in the lining. Okay, now that you've sewn together your lining and you did the center back seam and then sewed your side seams front to back, we're going to set the lining out for a second, and we're going to attach the strap to the back of our swimsuit. So we're going to do this in a crisscross motion. So you're going to go your right strap to the left side of your swimsuit, and you're going to pin. And then you're going to take your left strap and you're going to pin it. And you should have dots there or notches depending on which you transferred. Okay, and then just to make sure that it's right, take a look at it. Make sure it looks right. And once it's done, you're going to go ahead and stitch down your back straps. Now that we've done that, we can go ahead and slip our lining over the top of our swimsuit. So keeping your lining wrong side out, I want you to go ahead and slip your swimsuit on the inside. Go ahead and pin first at the center back seam, so make sure that both center back seams are matching. And then you want to make sure that your straps are to the inside, and then pin. Pin at your side seams. Pin at the other side seam. And then on the front, we're going to pin. Across the top. At the arm's eye. And then you want to make sure, two things, that you're keeping your strap on the inside and free from any stitching, and that you move your overlay to the inside a little bit, kind of push it out of the way, so that you can make sure that when you're pinning swimsuit to lining at the front, that you're not catching that overlay. Pin at the center front. And do the same thing on the other side. Now that we have the entire thing pinned, we're going to sew lining to swimsuit all the way around using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to start at one side seam. I'm going to pivot across the top of my shoulder. I'm going to pivot down the front. When I get to the center V of my front, I'm going to pivot and go up the other side. Once you've sewn all the way around, right at the V, at the front of our swimsuit, I want you to take your scissors and I want you to snip. Be careful not to snip through your stitching. You just want to snip close to your stitching. Okay, we're going to trim some of this seam allowance, so you're just going to cut off a little bit, especially around the front area and any curves. Now we can turn this right side out, and then you're just going to push your lining on the inside of your swimsuit. Okay, I'm going to turn this out so that I'm looking at my lining only. The right side of my swimsuit with the overlay is on the inside. And we're going to understitch. What that means is we're going to be stitching only through your lining layer, not all layers. So what you want to do is, starting in the back, let's start at the center back. is I want you to pull through, right, your hand so it's open here. This is your lining and this is your swimsuit over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to be making sure that our seam allowance is facing our lining. And then we're going to be sewing really close to that seam. Probably about 1/8 of an inch away from it. And we're going to do this, remember we're only sewing on our lining side, not our swimsuit. And we're going to be sewing all the way around as far as we can go. As you sew around, make sure that you can feel on the fabric that your seam allowance, because you can feel the bump, is still facing down towards your lining. Okay, looks like that's as far as I can go here. I'm going to go again from one side seam now to that center back. And now I'm going to understitch the front. I'm going to start at my V and work my way up one side and then do the other side. Sewing again only on my lining fabric. Now, as you can see, the understitching helps keep that lining rolled to the inside so it doesn't roll out when you're wearing it. Alright, I have gone ahead and pressed the entire top of my swimsuit using a cool iron, and I would suggest using pressing cloth. You don't want to put direct heat onto any spandex that could melt. So, and then now what we're going to do is we're going to create the casing for the elastic along the back of our swimsuit. So starting at one side seam, I want you to place your needle so that it's 3/8 of an inch away from the folded edge of your swimsuit. And we're going to sew across the entire back. You're going to stop when you reach the other side seam. Okay, we're going to cut our elastic for the back, so grab your paper pattern number 5, which is your elastic guide for the upper back, and you're just going to measure out some elastic using a 1/4 inch wide elastic. And you're going to cut one. And then go ahead and put your safety pin in through the end of one side of your elastic. And what you're going to do is you're going to reach inside in between your layers. And you're going to put your elastic inside of that casing that we just created. And you're going to sift it until we get to the other side Now we want to make sure to keep an eye on this because you don't want the other side of your elastic to go all the way inside. I'm going to sift about halfway, and then I'm going to check on the other end of my elastic. Now before pulling, I'm reaching the other end of my side seam, so I put my hand in between the layers. And I'm going to pull just a little bit. I'm going to remove my safety pin. And I'm going to stitch this down right where my side seam is. That's where I'm going to stitch down, stitching through all layers to make sure I catch that elastic. And put my hand into the other side. I can see that I still have my elastic there, so I'm going to go ahead and pull and then stitch it down. Go ahead and pull along the back. And clean up by finishing off any loose threads. Just snip everything off. Make sure you have a nice clean finish, and then we'll continue. Okay, now we're going to close out our crotch. So I want you to get the crotch of your swimsuit front and back. Just leave your lining hanging there. And I want you to bring your front to back crotch together. And you're going to pin it and stitch using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And you're going to do the same thing with your lining crotch. Bring those two together, pin and sew. And now you can just put your swimsuit back over. And as you can see, we've now stitched our crotch on both sides, front and back, and our lining. And now we're going to stitch this together so that it becomes one, our lining and our swimsuit. Alright, we're going to start by aligning our crotch seams. And we're going to pin there first. And we're just going to baste around this entire leg opening so that, like I said, we can join both lining and swimwear together. Pin at the side seam, making sure that your side seams are aligned. And make sure that your notches are aligned along the leg opening. And you're going to sew all the way around. I'm sewing about a 1/4 inch away from the edge of my fabric. Now you're going to sew the other opening the same way. Okay, now that our lining and our swimwear fabric have been joined at the leg, now go ahead and cut out 2 pieces of elastic using your elastic guide, which is pattern piece number 6. And so I've already cut out both of my elastics, and I'm going to go ahead and overlap them. So I want you to overlap your elastic about 3/8 of an inch, and we're going to zigzag it just so that it stays put. And you're going to do the same thing to the other one. And now what we're going to do is we're going to place our elastic over the top of our swimsuit, like this. We're working on the right side of our swimsuit, not our lining. And I'm going to pin right where I'm going to be starting. Then I'm going to pin again at my side seam. I'm stretching to make sure that my elastic and my leg opening are even. And I'm going to pin. And now using a wider zigzag stitch, I'm going to stitch this down. And my elastic is right along the edge of my fabric. And you're going to be pulling just a tad. Now what we're going to do is, because we're looking at the right side of our swimsuit, we're going to turn this to the inside, and then we're going to turn it again, completely encasing that elastic. And we're going to sew close to the edge. You're going to be using a very narrow zigzag stitch. Go slow when you get to the bumpy parts, because you have elastic and you have seam allowances and you don't want to break a needle, so just go slow. And now the entire leg casing is finished. Your elastic is inside, so you don't even see it, and it's nice and comfortable. And you're going to finish the other leg opening the same way. Okay, we're going to take our ties and we're going to fold them in half lengthwise with right sides facing, and we're going to stitch using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to turn this right side out, same way as you did for your straps. Once you have it right side out, I like to make a little knot at the end. And then we're going to make a bow. And And then we will stitch this onto our finished swimsuit at the sides where the elastic is. Okay, once you're done finishing your leg openings and you've added your elastic and you've turned over your hem, all that's left to do is to attach the tie. So I have folded my tie in half, and I'm going to place the center of my tie over the center of my ruching here down at the bottom, and I'm just going to stitch it down. And then that way I can just tie it and it will not come off. That's all there is to it. I hope you've enjoyed this sew along. Until next time, peace.